HOA introduction. Describe the first encounter with the Homeowners Association, HOA. The conflict begins. HOA demands. Explain how the HOA storms in, making demands regarding the lake. Protagonist's confusion. Highlight the protagonist's bewilderment and their initial response. Or, the power dynamics discovering control. Reveal how the protagonist learns they have control over the docks. Backstory of the docks. Provide history on why the docks are significant to the HOA. 5. Escalating tensions. HOA. Pushback. Detail how the HOA tries to exert pressure on the protagonist. Community reactions. Introduce neighbors who either support or oppose the HOA. 6. Legal and personal battles. Research. Show the protagonist researching property laws and HOA rules. Confrontation. Create a dramatic confrontation between the protagonist and the HOA. 7. The turning point community support. The protagonist gains allies among neighbors. Revealing secrets. Discover hidden agendas within the HOA. 8. Resolution negotiation. The protagonist negotiates terms with the HOA. New community dynamics. Show how the community changes post-conflict. 9. Conclusion. Reflection. The protagonist reflects on their journey and the importance of standing up for oneself. Future outlook. Leave room for potential future conflicts or growth in the community. Sample introduction. The sun dipped low over the shimmering surface of Lake Serenity, casting golden hues across the water as Jen took a deep breath, embracing the tranquil beauty of her new home. After years of city living, she had finally made the leap to the idyllic lakeside community, where every morning promised the gentle lull of water lapping against the shore. However, her peaceful transition was abruptly interrupted on her first day. Just as she was unpacking her last box, a group of sharply dressed individuals barged through her front door, their expressions a blend of authority and unyielding expectation. They introduced themselves as the Homeowners Association, armed with a list of demands regarding the lake that she had so eagerly anticipated enjoying. "Ms. Taylor," the lead member said, adjusting his glasses with a sense of entitlement, "we need to discuss your use of the lake and the docks. They are community property, and you must comply with our regulations." Jen's heart raced as confusion washed over her. Little did they know she wasn't just any resident. She held the key to the very docks they believed they controlled. As the storm clouds of conflict began to gather over Lake Serenity, Jen realized she would have to fight not just for her home, but for the respect she deserved within her new community. The moving truck had barely pulled away when the HOA descended. It was a beautiful Monday morning in September. The air in Oakhaven Estates smelled of pine and fresh water. I, Alex Chen, stood on the back porch of my new retirement home, sipping coffee and gazing at my purchase. A perfectly rustic log cabin overlooking the serene, private Whispering Lake. It had been advertised as lakefront property with exclusive deeded access. I was planning to spend my golden years here fishing, reading, and finally having some peace. The peace lasted exactly 45 minutes. A procession of people in crisp polo shirts and khaki shorts marched across my pristine lawn from the direction of the community docks. At the head was a woman whose face was set in a permanent scowl of officious disapproval. This was Brenda, the notorious HOA president. "Mr. Chen, I presume?" Brenda's voice cut through the quiet, carrying the forced formality of a lawyer delivering a summons. "Actually, it's just Alex," I replied, trying to be friendly. "And welcome to the open house." "You just missed the coffee." Brenda did not crack a smile. She gestured sharply to the lake. "We are the Oakhaven Estates Homeowners Association Board. You bought this property on an unfortunately vague listing. We need to clarify the reality immediately." "The reality is gorgeous," I said, genuinely admiring the view. "What's the issue?" "The issue, Alex," a tall, severe man named Robert chimed in, "is the lake itself. We are here to inform you that your purchase includes the land up to the waterline. The lake, from the waterline outward, is the sole property of the Oakhaven Estates Association, managed for the recreational use of all 150 members. My smile finally faltered. I don't understand. This is a lakefront property. The entire appeal is the lake. Brenda pulled a rolled-up document from Robert's hand and unfurled it dramatically. The original development was phased. This specific parcel, previously owned by the reclusive Mr. Henderson, was never formally annexed into the common property deeds of the association. We are rectifying that now. You are a new owner. Your deed is subordinate to the original superior covenants, conditions, and restrictions, CC&Rs, that govern Oakhaven. In short, Robert concluded, with an unsettling finality, you own the dirt. We own the water. We are installing a fence at the established property line tomorrow. You will have a view, but you have no fishing, no swimming, and absolutely no boating in the community's asset. The blatant land grab was staggering. They had waited until the ink was dry on my deed before pouncing. And just so you understand the gravity of the situation, Brenda added, her eyes glinting with a perverse satisfaction, we will be installing new signage immediately. The dock that came with this cabin, the one we are all currently using, is community property and will remain so. She actually pointed to the tiny wooden dock I assumed was mine, right next to the massive, elaborate L-shaped dock structure used by the other residents. No, I said, shaking my head. That little dock? You can have that. It's nothing. I set my coffee down and walked calmly down the lawn to a heavy, ornate oak gate, one I hadn't even opened yet. It stood between my property and the cluster of community-use docks. I opened the gate, walked through, and approached the colossal Oakhaven Community Docks, a sprawling, multi-slip structure where about 40 expensive pontoon boats and ski boats were tied. The HOA board followed me. Confused, Alex, this is common property, Robert warned. You do not have the right to be here. I ignored him and walked to the main support post of the L-shaped dock. I reached down, found a small, rusted lockbox recessed into the wood, and pulled out a key I'd received at closing. Click. I opened the box and retrieved a thick, rolled-up document bound with a red ribbon. I turned back to the stunned HOA board. You're right. Brenda, I said, matching her earlier officious tone. We should clarify the reality immediately. You came here demanding my lake, but I think we're going to have to talk about your docks first. I unrolled the document with a flourish. It was the original deed of sale and property survey from 1972, when the entire property had first been subdivided and sold by the Henderson family, the original owners. You were correct about the lake boundary, I continued, my voice steady. My property, Parcel B, does extend only to the waterline. However, the deed for Parcel B explicitly states that the lakebed itself, from the original shoreline out 50 feet, was never sold to the association. It was granted to the owner of this cabin as a private deeded buffer. Brenda's eyes narrowed. 50 feet of lakebed is meaningless. You can't use it! The water is still the association's. True, I agreed. But let's talk about the Oakhaven Community Docks. I tapped the elaborate multi-slip structure with my foot. Your docks are spectacular, and they are, by my professional estimation, about 60 feet long, extending at least 50 feet out from the waterline onto the lakebed. The lakebed that, according to the 1972 survey, and confirmed by my title insurance, I now own. A collective gasp went through the board members. Robert looked like he might faint. You see, I explained, tucking the deed back into the scroll, the Henderson family who sold this property were particular. They were furious when the community association formed and tried to dictate what they could do on their own land. So they changed the deed to ensure that if the HOA ever became petty, the owner of this parcel would hold a very simple, very powerful trump card. This is absurd, Brenda spluttered. You're saying that the entire community's waterfront, the entire purpose of Oakhaven Estates, is currently floating on your property? Not floating, Brenda, I corrected gently. It's supported. The pilings of this magnificent structure are driven deep into my lakebed. The legal term for that is encroachment. It's a pretty serious violation, and it gives me a couple of options. I gave them a smile that lacked any warmth. Option 1, I can take you to court. I have the superior deed. The court will order the association to immediately remove or demolish all docks encroaching on my property. That means 40-some-odd boats are going to need new homes, and the association will face millions in fines and litigation costs. I paused, letting the silence hang heavy. Or, I offered, we can discuss option 2. Brenda swallowed, her indignation finally dissolving into cold fear. What is option 2? I looked past them, out over the beautiful, shimmering water of my lake. Option 2 is simple. We forget this little chat ever happened. You forget about building a fence. You formally acknowledge that my property includes full and exclusive recreational access to the lake for fishing, swimming, and boating, the whole 9 yards. Furthermore, the association will pay me a nominal $1 annual lease fee for the continued use of my lake bed to support your community docks. Robert found his voice. A lease fee? Why only $1? Because it's not about the money, Robert, I said, stepping back toward the cabin. It's about the principle. I bought this proper. It's about the principle. I bought this proper.